They see the numbers are going up. We are in the second wave of COVID-19.
We'll take you to a pop-up testing site in one of Toronto's hardest hit neighborhoods. And
he's very traumatized by it. Yeah, it's been a bit of a shock.
A man tried to catch a peeping Tom outside his own home and ended up in the hospital with stab wounds. Also, with a spike in visits to the food bank, this weekend, volunteers helped feed the hungry. Good evening. We're glad to be back with our weekend newscasts. I'm Marivel Tarouk. We begin with hundreds more new cases of COVID-19 today in Ontario and Quebec. In Ontario, there are 809 confirmed infections. In Quebec, they're once again above the 1,000 mark. Lorenda Redekop has a look at how both provinces are handling the spike this long weekend.
In Quebec, where there are police checkpoints for red zones, they recorded 1,097 new cases. Another city, Gatineau, was added to the red zone list. The premier pleaded with people to enjoy this Thanksgiving weekend without extended family and friends.
You can call them, but avoid contacts. Stay home.
In Ontario, officials hope closing some businesses will help. Extra restrictions in the province's 3 hot zones take effect for at least 28 days. No indoor dining in restaurants, bars are shuttered, gyms and fitness studios closed. The province's testing backlog is down slightly, but still more than 56,000. Experts warn it means the daily cases are actually much higher than reported.
I wouldn't even look at the case numbers. I would look at the hospitalization numbers for the true trend of what's happening. And we won't know for a few weeks what the actual case numbers are until we get the testing system back up.
And officials say hospitalizations jumped 250% in 3 weeks. In Toronto, a one-day pop-up testing site opened today in one of the city's hardest hit neighborhoods. To get a test elsewhere, it's now by appointment only.
A lot of them are, frontline workers, food service, manufacturing, anybody who's, a different economic demographic is here. And, people who work hard and who work multiple jobs, in fact, and just simply don't have the time and resources to work into, assessment appointments.
The new restrictions don't affect this small Toronto restaurant. It hasn't opened indoors since March. It has that option since it has catering and delivery.
If we're lucky, this time next year we'll be opening up my restaurant. I decided that we wouldn't open up till there's a vaccine and it starts to be widely distributed, or until there's, 0 cases.
Still likely a long road ahead, with case counts the highest since the pandemic started. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Despite the surge in cases, another anti-mask protest took place in downtown Toronto today. With the new restrictions coming into effect tonight, police are sending participants a warning.
We're asking individuals to please adhere to social distancing and adhere to what the City of Toronto is requesting in regards to self-isolation and only going out when you need to. The only way that we can curb this pandemic is that we work together.
The rise in cases here in Toronto stem largely from community spread, mostly from indoor dining and gatherings between large groups of people who aren't physical distancing or wearing masks. Officials say the safest way to celebrate Thanksgiving is with only members of your own household. A man has been arrested after a fatal crash in Mississauga overnight.
At this point, we're just advising that someone has been taken into custody. Investigation is still ongoing, and once charges are laid, then we would be releasing that later on.
It happened near Mineola Road and Hurontario Street just after midnight when 3 vehicles were involved in a collision. One person died on scene. A man and woman who were in the same vehicle were taken to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. 2 people in another vehicle were treated for minor injuries. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. And in Vaughan, a man is dead after his motorcycle crashed last night. It happened in the area of Highway 7 and Centre Street just after 10:30. The man in his 30s died from his injuries. York police are investigating the incident. And now to Toronto, where police are looking for a teenaged boy wanted in connection with 2 shootings that injured 5 people.
We're considering him armed and dangerous. At any point in time, anybody sees this individual or has any information about this individual, do not approach. Please contact police.
An arrest warrant has been issued for 17-year-old Jory Dixon for shooting incidents that happened back in August. The first happened in the area of Mount Olive Drive and Kipling in Etobicoke when 2 people were shot inside a townhouse complex. A short time later, 3 men were shot outside a residence near Shoreham and Jane. Police say Dixon is also a suspect in a series of shootings that happened 2 weeks ago where 1 man died and 3 others were injured. Police required a judge's approval to release Dixon's identity because he's under 18. Anyone who sees Dixon or has information is asked to call 911. A Toronto musician is recovering in hospital after confronting a peeping Tom outside his home. Friends say 28-year-old Connor Grant was stabbed while trying to call police. The suspect got away, but not before Grant was able to take video of him. Kelda Yoon has more.
He's very traumatized by it. Yeah.
Nick Cassidy is good friends with Connor Grant, who he plays in a band with. Connor lives in this house in the area of Darcy Street and Beverly Street. It was outside here that he was stabbed in the rib in the wee hours of Thursday.
4 o'clock in the morning, he just came down for a smoke, and he steps out here, and he saw a man kneeling here with his pants off, looking in through this window.
A woman lives in the basement. She was home at the time and had no idea someone was watching. Cassidy says when Connor saw what was going on, he sprung into action.
As he's walking away, Connor was like, "Stay there, I'm calling the police," and the guy pulled out a knife and they got into a fight. But it seems that the knife went in pretty bad, punctured his lung.
The suspect ran off, but Connor managed to grab a quick video, giving police some images to go by. This is who they are looking for, wanted for aggravated assault. He's described as a white male between 40 to 60 years old, 5'5", with a thin build. He was wearing a black hooded sweater and dark pants. Police are asking people not to approach him if they see him, but to call police immediately.
Anytime there's a situation like this, we feel there's a risk to the public. That's why it's important that if there's any information the public has that can assist us, it's imperative that we get this individual off the streets.
Meanwhile, Connor won't be home for a while as he recovers in hospital.
We genuinely at this stage do not know when he's going to be out of the woods.
His friends and bandmates have set up a GoFundMe page to raise money to help him get by as he recovers.
He's a really great guy. He's a really lovely guy. He's not an aggressive guy, but he definitely would stand up for someone, especially like his housemate.
A streaming music fundraiser will also be held next Wednesday to raise money for Connor. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's check in with Christina for the weather forecast. It really felt like summer out there today. I was a bit confused, Christina.
Hi, Maribel. Great to see you again. I think that was summer's last curtain call because things are going to get a little bit cooler, but I've got pretty good news on the way. So let's take a look at these current conditions. Our Saturday, Toronto 17 degrees, London at 15 degrees. We have been dealing with some of those passing showers. Those are continuing to push eastward, though, into the nation's capital. We've been dealing with some thunderstorms as well, but once again, that's all pushing eastward, taking a closer look at our satellite and radar. But Saturday overnight, it's going to get a little cooler. Toronto 7 degrees, Oakville at 7 degrees, and here comes a little bit of frost. But here's your silver lining. It's not going to be penetrating the greater Toronto area, pushing north and pushing east. So I'd say keep that quilt handy for your overnight. Here is your holiday Sunday morning. Plenty of sunshine across the board, but as I mentioned, cooler conditions. So Toronto at 7 degrees, Oakville at 9 degrees. We could be dealing with some passing showers. And then Sunday afternoon, our high, Toronto 12 degrees, Oakville 12 degrees, Newmarket at 12 degrees. And then come Monday, a peek into the Long Ranger, but I'll have more details for you coming up shortly. Keep that umbrella handy because we could be dealing with some showers for Monday. I'll have those details coming up in the Long Ranger.
Okay, we'll check with you in a bit. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you.
On this Thanksgiving weekend, food banks are struggling to keep up with demand. The Daily Bread Food Bank says the pandemic has created a level of need it's never seen before. Today, it held its annual Thanksgiving food drive, hoping to get a boost in donations to feed those who need it most. And as Angelina King tells us, this year's event looked a bit different.
A lineup of cars, contactless drop-off, and thousands of pounds of food, hoping to make a dent in this year's huge demand. Since the pandemic, the number of the Daily Bread Food Bank's new clientele has increased by more than 200%. So far this year, it's feeding 25,000 people a week across Toronto, 10,000 more than at this time last year.
At no time has the need for food banks been more pressing, and we are struggling to keep up with that demand.
The CEO also says the clientele has changed since the pandemic.
We're seeing a lot of new faces. You know, COVID has hit us all, and so there are a lot of new faces, women and men that you would just, be colleagues with, on the bus with, that are having to make that decision of putting their family first and coming to a food bank.
Luna Getkowski-Vio had those people in mind leading up to her 12th birthday. Instead of asking for toys or technology, she wanted donations, raising more than $300 for the Daily Bread.
Since my birthday's near Thanksgiving, I wanted other people to be able to have a meal, plus I really like helping people.
The Daily Bread says ultimately the goal is to no longer exist by eradicating poverty with better income support and affordable housing. Toronto's mayor helped unload food today and agrees, saying the city is working on it.
A challenge to say coming out of the pandemic that we have work to do on jobs, because if people have a good job, they're going to be able to provide better for their own families, and on housing, because right now people are spending too much of their income on housing, and it leaves less for food and creating food security issues. So it's something that we're going to have to, we are turning our attention already, even with the pandemic still on and all the management challenges that brings.
To help meet that demand as part of its Thanksgiving food drive, the Daily Bread has set a goal to raise more than $1.9 million and collect more than 270,000 pounds of non-perishable food, and you can help donate until the end of the month. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
I want to thank all of you for your prayers. I know you've been praying, and I was in that hospital.
He's back. Trump made his first public appearance since being diagnosed with COVID-19. We'll have details on that story coming up. The Windsor, Essex area recorded its highest daily tally since mid-August yesterday of COVID-19. But despite that, the region is not one of those facing tighter restrictions. A majority of the cases are connected to a farm in the area. CBC's Sanjay Maru has more on this latest outbreak.
In terms of outbreaks among migrant agricultural workers, there haven't been significant changes to our approach to preventing spread and risk among this population.
Susanna Kashik is a professor and researcher at Western University. She says that another outbreak happening at an agri farm in Windsor, Essex is unfortunate, but not surprising.
Because there isn't the infrastructure in place oftentimes to ensure adequate distancing for migrant agricultural workers, it's worrying that these numbers will even increase beyond this.
On Friday, the Windsor Essex County Health Unit reported an outbreak at a Kingsville agri farm, citing 17 new cases among workers. As has been that health unit's norm, the name of the operation isn't being released. Teresa Marentet serves as CEO for the health unit.
The accommodations and the spread of the virus to immediate close contacts is what's increased the numbers in that accommodation setting.
Bunkhouses, congregate living to be specific. It's those accommodation settings which advocates say need to see improvements to prevent the spread of COVID-19. But Nelson Santos, mayor of Kingsville, says he's confident in the strategies put in place.
We're fortunate to have, obviously, the situation, contained, controlled. Isolation is in place for the workers.
Santos adds the town is working to refine those congregate living settings, which he admits is likely what spurred this outbreak. Sanjay Maru, CBC News, Windsor.
Manitoba is also reporting record high cases of COVID-19. 97 new infections and 2 more deaths announced today. As the CBC's Austin Grabish reports, there are now several outbreaks on reserves, sparking concern from Indigenous leaders.
The homes are small, crowded, and isolated. The goal was to keep COVID-19 off these remote reserves. But since that failed, Indigenous leaders are implementing their Plan B. Among top concern, how to care for someone who's fallen ill with the coronavirus. Dozens of Manitoba Indigenous communities require a ferry or plane ride to get to.
Imagine they're having this significant outbreak right now. How are they transporting people? It's a logistical nightmare, and it's going to be even more difficult once the freeze up happens, which is going to happen here in the next couple of weeks.
Grand Chief Arlen Dumas says the last week has been detrimental. There are over 140 First Nations people currently sick in Manitoba with the coronavirus, and at least 60 active cases are on reserve.
I think it's significant, but I think it's also a testament to what we already knew. Unfortunately, due to poverty and due to a lot of systemic issues, our populations have more underlying health issues.
COVID-19 is spreading quick on reserves. There are at least 9 First Nations spread out across Manitoba reporting cases.
And the current rate of hospitalizations for First Nations people in Manitoba due to COVID-19 is 10 times what it is for the rest of Manitoba.
Dr. Marcia Anderson says over half the patients in Manitoba hospitals are First Nations people. She says they're as young as 17, and doctors are seeing severe illness in young people. She calls the rising case numbers concerning and says the test positivity rate for First Nations people is now at 5.93%.
We have been making up a steadily increasing proportion of all active cases in the province. If we were to look back last week, we had been around 9 or 10%. Now we're about 15%.
The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs says isolation tents are now on their way to at least 1 reserve, and they're now considering asking the military to set up a field hospital. Austin Grabish, CBC News, Winnipeg.
He will not be slowed down, even by the coronavirus. That seems to be the message Donald Trump was sending at his first public event since testing positive for COVID-19. As Stephen D'Souza reports, a tightly packed crowd of so-called Blexit supporters cheered on the U.S. president at the White House.
Just 8 days after being checked into hospital with COVID-19, just 5 days after being released, with hundreds of supporters penned in on the south lawn of the White House, Donald Trump made his first public appearance.
I was in that hospital. I was watching down over so many people, And I went out to say hello to those people, and I took a little heat for it, but I'd do it again. Let me tell you, I'd do it again.
Even with questions about the president's health still lingering in the air, supporters showed their love. The event, billed as a White House event, had all the hallmarks of a Trump rally. He focused on his pitch to African American voters, the blue-shirted supporters, part of the so-called Blexit movement, people who think blacks and Latinos shouldn't automatically vote for the Democrats.
Thank you.
But the biggest issue, is this another potential super-spreader event? Just 2 weeks ago, the White House held an event to announce their Supreme Court nominee. That led to more than 24 new COVID-19 cases. One, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, just got out of hospital. Infectious disease experts say Trump isn't likely that contagious anymore. The risk is in the crowd.
Even though it's outdoors, those people weren't spacing well, there weren't that many masks. It's a bit dicey in that context.
Reports suggest Trump is eager to press forward, to project strength and a return to normalcy. Today, he boasted the virus will disappear, contrary to what experts have said.
Through the power of the American spirit, I think more than anything else, science, medicine will eradicate the China virus once and for all. We'll get rid of it.
Trump may be motivated by polls showing rival Joe Biden's lead widening nationally and in some key battlegrounds.
The longer Donald Trump is president, the more reckless he gets. How can we trust him to protect this country?
What's clear is that the president is not slowing down. He has a campaign event in Florida on Monday, another in Pennsylvania on Tuesday, and then yet another in Iowa on Wednesday. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
Let's get rid of that stigma. Let's make sure every day is Mental Health Day for everybody, and that means for ourselves, but also for other people that we care about.
Today is World Mental Health Day, an important day to mark, especially this year. We'll tell you more about that after the break. Hundreds of thousands of people are without power today in parts of Texas and Louisiana after Hurricane Delta made landfall. The storm has been downgraded to a tropical depression. In some areas, floodwaters continue to rise, and the worst may not be over for some. Up to 25 centimeters of rain is expected by the day's end. Well, thankfully, Christina, we're not expecting any kind of real weather like that, although it is a little active, it seems, this weekend.
All right, so our Sunday afternoon at 12 degrees, that's going to be a high. By the way, in case you were wondering, we did have a high of 22 degrees for today, although it did feel like 26. So here's your Sunday overnight. Toronto at 11 degrees, Oakville at 11 degrees. So cooler overnight. And then for your holiday Monday, so you may need an umbrella because we are feeling this cold front passing through, and we could also be dealing with the remnants of Hurricane Delta. If we do, it's going to be passing showers, but really for our Monday, we're going to be feeling that cold front come through. That is going to be bringing us some heavy rainfall. So here we are taking a closer look into our long range forecast. So here's our Monday. Here's that cold front I was telling you about. This is going to be bringing us some more widespread showers. And then we could also be feeling with the remnants of Hurricane Delta, which, by the way, did make landfall close to Creole, Louisiana, as a hurricane category 2. So Toronto, our next 7 days, here is your Sunday at 12 degrees, your Monday at 15 degrees. Here is that rainfall. Tuesday and Wednesday, 17 and 16 degrees. And then enjoy the Tuesday and Wednesday, because then come Thursday into Friday, well, we're going to be dealing with another passing cold front. So here come some more rainfall and then also cooler temperatures. Mississauga, Ontario, here is your Sunday at 12 degrees. Your Monday, there is your rainfall. Tuesday and Wednesday, some sunshine. And then here is that cold front for your Thursday and Friday. So you got to keep that umbrella handy for the week to come. And then in case you're driving to the nation's capital to celebrate Thanksgiving Monday, your Sunday at 10 degrees, plenty of sunshine.
All right, we'll have the umbrellas handy though. Thanks, Christina.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Well, today is World Mental Health Day, and the Mayor of Toronto is asking people to reach out, especially now during the pandemic.
On a day like today, I hope people will talk to each other, take an interest in even just asking about the well-being of some people you might think are frail in terms of their mental health. Let's get rid of that stigma. Let's make sure every day is Mental Health Day for everybody, and that means for ourselves, but also for other people that we care about.
It is a day that's even more important to recognize this year. The city has ramped up support services since the start of the pandemic to help those most vulnerable, like children and youth, seniors, frontline workers, and racialized communities. And that's our show for you tonight. We're going to leave you with some shots of the beautiful fall colors here in the city. We're back here tomorrow night at 11. Have yourselves a great night, everyone.